I would like to appreciate all of you here today, and then I'll try to explain my presentation. Eritrea, as you have seen, as big as Pennsylvania, is a small country, a young independent country in Africa. It was first established in 1890 as a nation state by Italian colonialism, together with its sister Italian colonies of Somalia and Libya. Soon after, the major European powers formalized their policy to divide Africa. In 1941, at a time when the fate of the former Italian colonies was decided, one by the League of Nations, Somalia and Libya got their independence and Eritrea was denied. At the end of the British administration, in 1952, Eritrea had been forced to accept federation with Ethiopia when the United States determined to set up a military base in Eritrea. The events that led to the senseless war could have been, I'm sorry, some papers remained up in here, I will find them. Yes, and forcibly annexed the strategic Red Sea territory, prompting Eritrean nationalists to launch an armed struggle for independence. The strategic foreign policy of the US and its ally Ethiopia was costly, since it was based on using sheer force to resolve conflicts. Even after the US was replaced by the former Soviet Union in 1977 as the main sponsor of Ethiopia, the use of force was pursued relentlessly to crush the Eritrean armed resistance and did not have any outside support other than its strong, heroic people to struggle for self-determination, a right enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. To the surprise of the superpowers of the Cold War and their allies, who underestimated the will of the people, Eritrea, after 30 years of armed struggle against Ethiopian annexation and occupation, came out victoriously in 1991 by defeating the Soviet-backed and the most heavily armed defense forces of Ethiopia. Nobody believed us. Just a year before our independence, there was a meeting of military strategists, and they were discussing about Eritrea. No one of them said that Eritrea will be independent. And no country in the whole world believed that Eritreans will be independent. I'm not trying to tell you this to boost myself or my country, but that was the reality. Yet, mind you of the supremacy of law, and not deluded by the military victory, Eritrea opted to show utmost patience and conducted an internationally observed popular referendum. In May 1993, Eritrean people voted yes, including in America, in different states of America and Canada and Europe. Eritreans voted yes for independence with a result of 99.8%. We got our independence, we liberated Eritrea in 1991, but we didn't want immediately to announce independence, because we knew before that nobody was thinking that we will win or we will come out victorious. And therefore, to convince the international community and to close the UN Charter, the UN resolution, we had to do a referendum. And that referendum was observed by UN and international organizations. NGOs, including NGOs. When the socialist government of Mengistu Haile Mariam, a military dictator, was overthrown and replaced by the current new government headed by Prime Minister Meles Zenawi in 1991, it's at the same time that both Ethiopia and Eritrea were liberated, I can say, because in Ethiopia there was this fascist military government, so the TPLF, now being called the EPRDF, were fighting side by side with us, and they occupied Addis Ababa 4 days after Asmara was liberated. They also hoped that Eritrea would focus on rebuilding politically, socially, and economic institutions to make up for the lost opportunities. However, the recent war, 1998 to 2000, shattered that notion. Soon after 1991, many former Ethiopian guerrillas, this is something that I have been mentioning to you before, I'll jump that. Besides, the territorial encroachment was accompanied by the issuance of the map of Tigrayan administrative region that included a big swath of Eritrean territories, violating the legal borders established by treaties signed with Italy in 1900s. The illegal issued map proved to be the end of the good relations between the two countries since 1991. In 2005, the EEBC, the Eritrea-Ethiopia Boundary Commission, advised the UN Security Council that they have decided to close their offices in Eritrea and Ethiopia. Mr. Kofi Annan, or the UN Security Council, took no action against Ethiopia, and their offices were closed and still remain closed. This is because after the EEBC gave a decision in 2002, we both accepted the decision. But after 8 months, Ethiopians changed their mind, and they said, we reject the final and binding decision. In fact, they characterized it as unjust, illegal, and irresponsible. And they filed a 21-page memorandum on 19 September 2003. At this time, we were expecting the UN, which is a guarantor, the US, which is a guarantor, the European Union, which was a witness, the African Union, which was a guarantor. We expected them to seriously press Ethiopia to come back to their senses. Because the decision that was given in Hague by the Eritrea-Ethiopia Boundary Commission was agreed to be final and binding. Final and binding. Both of us signed the agreement in 2000, as I have showed you before. In view of the above reasons, demarcation of the border remains stalled. More than 4 years after the legal award, at a huge financial cost to the international community due to Ethiopia's rejection of the final and binding arbitration decision. You don't believe that, but UNMI, the United Nations mission in Eritrea and Ethiopia, they spend about $200